The Linscott case from Maine is just another example of the common law principle we saw in the Tennessee Carson case that looks at natural and probable consequences. And it just gives you another example of how broad this theory of liability is and how objectionable it can be. So the defendant says, look, you can't hold me guilty of knowing or intentional murder when you haven't shown that I had any mens rea toward this killing crime. That all you can show is that I agreed to go along with a robbery. Well, Maine, much like Tennessee, uses the doctrine of natural and probable consequences. And so the defendant doesn't say that's not what the statute says. The defendant says, if the statute does say that, then it violates the Constitution. If you are arguing what a criminal statute can do, and you're left with nothing but a constitutional argument, you're likely going to lose. Courts give broad deference to the power of legislatures to define and punish crimes. But in the Linscott case, the court has to entertain this claim because the defendant's now raised it. It's going to be a weak claim because we've seen before, and there are just a legion of cases out there that demonstrate that constitutional challenges to the method of a legislature's punishment fail. I've almost never seen one that's successful. But what's interesting is just how bold the court is in its description of the power of the legislature. Here the court says, look, this is just like felony murder. You're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. They don't use that phrase, but it's clear that's what's going on. That once you have crossed the threshold into criminality, once you've agreed to go along with this crime of robbery, if one of your Confederates shoots and kills someone, we're not asking anything about your knowledge, your recklessness, any of these things. Merely was it an outgrowth of the thing you set in motion? That's the doctrine of natural and probable consequences. That is also, very well on display in the Tennessee Carson case. But in the Knox case, as we'll see in Pennsylvania takes a very different route. Pennsylvania says, oh no, in order for the defendant to be guilty of the murder of the victim in a case like Linscott, then he would have to share the criminality. If he's reckless, if his conduct is reckless with regard to the life of the victim, then he can go down for third-degree murder in Pennsylvania. If he actually desires the death and wants someone else to do it, then it's still first-degree murder. But you have to show under Pennsylvania law, not that he set the machine in motion that led to someone's death. You have to show under Pennsylvania law that he shared the culpability of his Confederate. If your theory is that this is a natural outgrowth of complicity law. Now, of course, Pennsylvania has felony murder. So there's something of an irony there, that if a death happens under Pennsylvania law, you can still use felony murder to achieve the same goal that Maine achieved through the doctrine of natural and probable consequences in Linscott. But you just can't use this theory of natural and probable consequences in Pennsylvania to show things short of death. And there's something quite ironic about that. But we'll pick up in the Knox case, in one of the next cases you'll look at in this series, that if one of your Confederates has a gun, you have to share the same culpability of the person who has that gun to be held liable for the crime that involves the gun. We'll take up that next, but understand that Maine is like Tennessee in that camp that Pennsylvania has rejected of charging or holding the defendant liable for the natural and probable consequences of any criminal conspiracy or any criminal confederation that the defendant joins. Pennsylvania has departed from that, but the majority of states still have that rule.